Soviet Union. I mean, how can he backtrack on those things honestly? You know, he's just, you know, reaffirming ideas that he has had for many years. Meanwhile, you know, the idea you can't say something good about someone like Fidel in Cuba, which frankly, in addition to literacy, also has a great healthcare system, has done a lot in terms of healthcare for many other countries, helped overthrow apartheid in South Africa, as Nelson Mandela said. I mean, there's things you can laud about that country, and what's wrong to do that? Meanwhile, you know, let's look at our own tyrants. You know, I'd put up Fidel's record against any U.S. president. You know, Obama, who's beloved by the Democrats, deported 3 million people, dropped more drones on innocent people than even George W. Bush, destroyed Libya, where slaves are now being sold on the streets thanks to him. I mean, I'm sorry, you know, you look at different countries and different leaders, and you can measure up the good against the bad.
Richard, if I can get back to you on this, I mean, Bernie Sanders has a lot of popular support. He's looking like the favorite right now, at least, to secure the nomination. Surely that means that people really don't care what his opinions are on Cuba, on socialism, on the Soviet Union. The guy has support based on what he's said over the years. As Dan Kovalik said, this is nothing new. He's supported similar things before. Surely this isn't such a bad PR image here.
So when you say that Bernie Sanders has a lot of support, in the presidential election, we're going to have about 140 million people vote. So far, Bernie Sanders has gotten 165,000 votes. So this notion that he has, quote, a lot of support, yeah, he has people that show up at his rallies. He had a lot of support last time. I would submit that a lot of his supporters did not vote for Hillary Clinton, and thank you to them, we have Donald Trump as our president. And for people who think that Barack Obama was this horrible mad bomber who is, you know, kind of antithetical to American values, I would say that if you like the way that Donald Trump is taking this country, knock yourself out. But most people, certainly most Democrats, would take Barack Obama over Donald Trump 100 times out of 100, and they're fearful that Bernie Sanders, once again, the Trump campaign dredges up all the things he has said and done, which in Vermont goes over just fine, but nationally, not so much.
Daniel Shaw, why do you think the US is still so afraid of democratic socialism? Why is socialism still such a dirty word? As Dan Kovalik said, the US has a history of supporting dubious leaders around the world, put it that way. Batista, Pinochet, to name just a few. Nobody would have an issue if a nominee or a candidate perhaps praised those regimes. This wouldn't be such an outcry. Why is socialism such a hot potato in the United States?
Yeah, the unofficial religion of the United States is anti-communism, and we just have to listen to Richard's previous comments, but to hear some of that anti-communism. But the truth is that the youth of this country and the multinational working class who supported Bernie in Nevada, 46% of the votes that he won in Nevada, they're not anti-socialist. The new generation is looking to tap into these benefits and these rights, these socio-economic rights that Bernie Sanders extols. So this generation is not falling for this. The intelligence community and the Pentagon and all of their anti-socialist rhetoric, they understand who the true enemy is. The enemy is not Venezuela or Cuba or China. It's the billionaires right here in the Pentagon, in the White House, the former mayor of New York City, Michael Bloomberg, and on Wall Street.
Richard, would you agree Bernie Sanders has a long record, a long history of fighting for justice, for equality, for rights? I don't think anybody can question that. And as Daniel rightly said there, perhaps the youth of today, those who don't remember the Cold War, the McCarthyism, etc., they just don't care if he praises a literacy program in Cuba. They judge him by his record, by his principles. I mean, what if we do move beyond electoral PR here? I mean, why is this such an issue?
Yeah, well, it is certainly the case that Bernie Sanders does have a long and unarguable history of fighting for equality, whether that's economic equality, racial equality, gender equality. And frankly, I think that's true for every other Democrat who's running for president. And the problem, though, with